Welcome to A Way Forward, the podcast where I sit down and have real discussions about the challenges we face in our cities, communities, and neighborhoods. The goal of this podcast is to create a space that includes expert interviews, guests with lived experiences, and voices not often heard. I'm your host, retired Police Chief Daniel Hahn, and I will bring my experience in law enforcement, community, and education to each conversation so that together we can build a way forward. Okay, we have today on A Way Forward Miss Brandi Cummings, anchor for, I believe, the number one news station in Sacramento, KCRA 3. Has been for as long as I can remember. Welcome.
Thank you.
I wanted to start with talk a little bit about your upbringing and what made you get into the profession of, I don't even know what to call it, the news
journalism,
world. Journalism,
media,
yes, journalism,
television, all the things.
Yeah, what was your impetus to get into that field?
So I was born and raised in Augusta, Georgia. It's funny because whenever I meet people from the South here in California, they're like, what part of the South are you from?
Oh, that's a thing.
That's a thing.
Okay, all right.
Because my husband says it comes out when I talk fast or when I'm upset or happy or whatever.
I could agree with that.
But so I grew up there. Most of my family is still there. Actually, we don't have any family outside of those that are in our household that are here in California, which is okay. We have a lot of friends and an adopted family. But I grew up there, and I wanted to be a doctor and a ballerina on the side, actually. I love my pediatrician. And I thought that's the path that I wanted to pursue. So much that I actually went to a health science and engineering magnet high school and was on the health science track. And so it's funny because even now in this role, I feel like I know a little bit about a lot because of those different experiences, right? Like I took blood from people in high school, you know, like I have watched 2 autopsies before. Like I've done things in medicine that a lot of people in this field probably have never done. Like no medical terminology. So all these weird things that, again, only come to play very little in this role. But so that was the path I was on in high school up until my junior year. And so I had this incredible guidance counselor, Lawana Quarles, I'll never forget. She sat me down, and I don't even know if they still do this, but she sat me down and she's like, okay, what are we doing? Where are we going? Where's college? And at the time I had no idea because I knew that that wasn't something I really wanted to pursue. I was doing it, but I didn't really want to. It sounded great. I think my mom would have been happy for me to be a doctor, right? But
what parent wouldn't? Yeah.
Right. But I just knew over time, and then when I realized how long I'd have to stay in college and how much additional training, I'm like, I don't think that's for me. So we talked about like what kinds of things I enjoyed, what did I like to do, what did I think I wanted to do long term, and I still didn't really have an answer. And so at the time, we had homeroom, and so in an effort to get out of homeroom, I was a part of a video team. So we had a group, a club, the Video Club, and we did a 20-minute live broadcast in the morning.
Wait, let me back up a little bit. So you didn't get into the Video Club because you were interested in video. You got into the Video Club because you were getting out of another class
Absolutely,
homeroom.
absolutely.
Okay, I just want to make sure I heard that right.
Yes, for all the people who are like, oh my God, she's smart. Yes, I am now. But I mean, not that I was a bad student. I mean, I was an AB student, but I wanted to get out of homeroom. I wanted I'm a Sagittarius. I love the freedom. I love the idea of having my own space, time, energy, and do it my way. I'll say it that way. And so I joined this club because every day you got to get out of homeroom to be in this club. And so as a part of that, we actually produced a 20-minute live newscast every day about things happening at the school. We did the interviews with the administrators and all the things. We interviewed our classmates. And so my counselor goes, well, do you enjoy that? Do you like doing that? And I'm like, yeah, it gives me access. I'm able to ask the tough questions, right, of the principal. I'm able to take the concerns of my classmates to the leadership. I'm able to see things change. I'm like, yeah, I like it. And so she's like, well, consider journalism. And I'm like, okay. And I never thought about it before then. My parents have always been avid news watchers. I mean, appointment television.
So you saw it without even realizing.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. My dad 6 o'clock news. He got home at 5:30, get off at 5, got home at 5:30. He watched the 6 o'clock news. My parents to this day remember all of the anchors from my hometown because they watched, they knew them. And so I saw that with them, but I didn't watch with them.
Right.
But it was still something that was a part of my upbringing, right, in my culture and what I knew. And so she said to me to start watching, at the time, BET, Black Entertainment Television, had a nightly newscast. And the anchor on nightly newscast at the time was her cousin. So she said to me, start watching my cousin. And I'm like, okay. And that was the first time I really started to believe that it was possible for a Black woman to be on television. Because again, I didn't consume news the way that my parents did. I mean, I'm 16, 17 years old. Right, and there was no TikTok. There was no Instagram. There was no Facebook. There was no social media, right? So there was no cell phones even. Right. My God, how can you live like that?
Don't say too much more. People are going to start knowing how old you are if you keep going down that road.
I'm very proud of my age. I won't say it here, but I'm very proud. But yeah, so you didn't have all of that. So it was literally like the television was the connection. Right. And so in Augusta, Georgia, there just weren't a lot of people that looked like me and my family on television. There may have been one Black anchor. There may have been one reporter. And I mean one like across the 4 television stations. So it just wasn't a field that I had even considered at that time. So I started watching. Her name was Jackie Reed. I started watching Jackie Reed.
Still remember her name.
I still remember her name. And one day I'm going to meet her in person, maybe at an NABJ conference, and tell her that she's the reason I'm in this field. But I follow her on social media and all the things. But I started watching her. And then I started to dream about working for BET. It's like, okay, I want to be the BET nightly news anchor. And I was heartbroken when they canceled the show. I'm like, oh my God, I'm never gonna live my dream.
Career's over.
Yes, career's over, it's done. But from there, so then we had to figure out what college, right? So it's like, okay, now you want to go into journalism, you can do this, you see yourself doing it, you know it's possible. And so then it's like, okay, what college? And I'm like, I don't know. What colleges have journalism? And so she told me about Clark Atlanta University, which is an HBCU in Atlanta, which, is 2.5 hours away from home. So she's like, it's far enough to where your parents aren't right around the corner.
Right.
They have to still drive to get
Heard
you.
That from my own daughters.
Yes. There's a little time to, before they can get to you, but they are still close where they can get to you. If something happens and you need something, you get homesick, and which I was for, the first year. But so I applied and got accepted. And it was the only school I applied to. Like, I think students now, they apply to hundreds of colleges.
Yes, they do.
I'm like, no, there was the one. I'm like, this is...
Good thing you got in.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, this is my shot. This is it. Because again, for me, it was very much, and I still am very much like this A-type personality. But it's like, this is the plan, and this is what I'm doing. It's journalism, it's this school. And if it's not that school, it's like, we'll figure out something else. But right now, it's journalism and it's this school. So I got in, and I, instantly started, you do the core courses your first couple years, and then I got right into, the program, the specialties. I gave myself 4 years. I'm like, I got 4, and I'm out. I mean, I had classmates that did 5 and 6.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I said, no, we're doing 4, and we're getting out. I had internships every summer. I mean, I really just focused on the career because I was dedicated to doing it, right, and making it work. And I had various internships. So I had internships in production where I learned how to put on the microphone and makeup and, learn how to roll cable and all the things. I interned at the Weather Channel where I was the person who do what we call log video. So they have what's called stringers. So they're the people that chase the tornadoes and get all the video, right? And they sell it to the Weather Channel. The Weather Channel pays for it, and someone in the library.
So you weren't on TV. You were behind the scenes.
No, yes.
Making, okay.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I was behind the scenes. So they send this video to the Weather Channel. There's someone in the library that has to log that video so the meteorologists, when they are on television, can talk about what the video is. So I was, okay, there's a tornado. This is Alabama, and so I learned that skill. And then I interned at Fox 5 in Atlanta, and so I would go out with the reporters.
Which is a pretty big market, I would assume.
That is.
Right?
Atlanta is in the top 10 markets of 210 across the country. And so I interned there and got mentors there. And as soon as I graduated, so I worked really hard to get what we call a resume reel. So not just a resume on paper, right? We have one of those, but the reel is a video demonstration of your work. And so I worked really hard. I got that together. And again, internet, I mean, it was a thing, but it wasn't like a thing where you have websites and links and things.
Wait, it is now.
Yeah, so I sent out VHS tapes. I am totally dating myself, by the way.
Yes, you are.
It's okay.
No problem, because I'm right there with you.
Right. But I sent like 30 VHS tapes, and I remember the label on the sticker said, hire Brandi Cummings. That was like the label. Like, so when they get this, they're going to hire me,
They'll know
right?
exactly what the purpose of this video is. Yes.
I got no calls to be a reporter, and I was absolutely devastated. Because, again, this was the plan.
This is not going with the plan.
Right. So, like, what are we doing now? Like, what's going to happen? So, again, because I'm doing all the things that the mentors and everyone told me to do. You work hard, you do this, and you send your reel out, and they're going to call you. And I didn't get any of those calls. I did, however, get a call about being a producer in my hometown of Augusta. And so, you know, at this time, I'm in my 20s. I've been away from my family for 4 years. I'm grown. I don't want to go back.
Right.
And so I called my mom. I'll never forget this conversation. I'm like, and it was WRDW, which is the #1 station in Augusta and still is. And they wanted to hire me as a producer. I called my mom. I'm like, so I didn't get a reporter offer. I got an offer as a producer. And I'm like, I don't want to produce. That's not what I want to do.
Well, I can't wait to hear the wisdom of mom.
My mom is a very direct,
you need a job.
Southern lady. Yes. She said, you can either be a wannabe reporter, an unemployed wannabe reporter, or an employed producer. You choose. So I was like,
Choose wisely.
Choose wisely. So I said, okay. I accepted this job, making $18,000 a year. I still have my first contract because I reference that number quite a bit when I talk to young people. And I had to move back home because, of course, I couldn't live on my own at the time. I hated it. I hated every part of it. I hated living at home because, again, I was grown. I had
the job. You hated
and
the job.
And I hated the job because I'm in my 20s. I knew everything, and I'm supposed to be a reporter. I should not have to do this. My boss was incredibly patient with me, and I mean, God bless her, Estelle Parsley. She's still there as a news director, but she really honed in on the skill. Not the attitude, not, the extra. She helped me grow as a journalist and as a producer. It was actually because of her that I went to Poynter, which is a sort of a journalism institute, if you will, where journalists come from all over the country to Florida, where you learn from experts in the field and in the industry. And so they sent me to a producing seminar in Poynter. But all of the skills that I learned as this 20-something know-it-all in this job that I hated, I am still using those skills now.
Yeah, I was going to say, being a producer probably helps you be a reporter.
Yes. Now, 22 years later, I am still using those skills right now. And I wouldn't trade it. I tell young people all the time, they're like, well, tell me about your journey and how did you start? I'm like, being a producer first was the best decision I could have ever made.
In hindsight. Because at the time, you didn't want to do it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because as a producer, you have your hands on every aspect of that newsroom. You're learning how to work with reporters. You're learning how to work with your assignment desk. When the phone calls are coming in about breaking news, you're answering that phone. You're learning how to write. You're learning how to time out commercials because you have to talk to the department called the traffic department that handles the commercials, and you're like, what's my commercial break time? You're working with anchors, and at that time I was working with seasoned anchors that also taught me things, taught me how to write. Again, newsroom culture was very different then than it is now. You know, those conversations like, Brandi, we don't talk about politics or religion in this newsroom. And it's like,
boy, has that changed.
It has changed quite a bit. But fundamentally, a lot of those ideologies and those skill sets and those things still live with me. And I think it helps me be a better journalist. It helps me, when people always ask, how do you remain unbiased? It's because when I started in this industry, it was a time where you check your bias at the door. Right. You have a job to do, and you focus on your job, and you focus on doing your job well. You don't interject all of your personal things because we recognize that everyone has bias, right? Everyone brings to every job their own experience, but yes, it shapes who you are. It shapes how you approach a story, but it shouldn't shape how you tell the story or the way in which you do an interview or the way in which you try to change someone's words or something like that. No, because that's not your role. So a lot of those skills that I learned, I still carry, and I'm still able to use them now, even where I am now.
And you mentioned the world of journalism, news has changed. So I want to get to that in a minute. But I also loved your story because so many successful people that I have talked to or met with or known over the years have a similar story, meaning where they are now is not where they thought they wanted to be. Like, I know very few people when they were your age in high school that are what they thought they wanted to be in high school, and yet they're very successful. And two, you mentioned a couple people, but the one that really caught my attention was your school counselor that saw how you were enjoying an activity, video, that you really didn't want to do. You're doing it and noticed that, was able to see that, and now that's really the basis of what you do today. So thank you for that story. But and before we get into NABJ, also, obviously you said you're from Georgia. And your first main jobs were in Georgia. And I've had the privilege of meeting numerous anchors and media folks over the years, and it doesn't seem like any of them have stayed where they're from, and they seem like they're from everywhere, right? They've been all over the country. So talk a little bit of how you ended up in Sacramento, which is a little distance from Georgia.
3,000 miles away, yes, for sure. So, in this field, and again, everyone's path is very different, but typically in this field, you do move around, and a big part of that is about career advancement, right? You bloom where you're planted, and then you recognize when it's time for you to move on for another opportunity, for another path, whatever that reason is. Nowadays, unfortunately, a lot of times it's because your position is eliminated, or your station decides not to renew your contract. We're seeing that, unfortunately, a lot
in
more.
Sacramento.
Yes. But so I started in Augusta as a producer for 3 years. And the thing about it is that dream never went away. The dream to be on air never went away. So I eventually ended up working like 7 days a week because I was working, Monday through Friday producing. And so I ended up getting promoted a few times. And so I ended up producing the 1 hour, 5 p.m. show, which was the top rated show at that time. And so did that during the week. But on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I would go out to shoot stories. So because again, I had
for the same station?
It never aired, but I had to work on that resume reel. Just like in college, you had to, you kind of fake it till you make it, right? So I still had to go out. I had to demonstrate to news directors that yes, I'm a producer, but I also can report, and I want to report, and give me a shot, and here's why, and here's my dedication. I'm working here, and I'm doing this for 5 days, but I'm doing this on the side because this is what I really want. And so I put in that work, and I would go out. I would, work with a photographer and all of this was on my own time. Like I was not getting paid for this.
And they were probably doing it for free too,
Absolutely,
right? The photographers,
yeah,
so they're doing
of
you a
course.
favor.
Yes,
yeah.
they did me favors. I mean, I paid
Relationships
for, paid
are probably
for lunch.
pretty important, right?
Absolutely, they
if
are.
I treat this guy like garbage, then he's not gonna.
Absolutely, yeah. And because I was a producer, I knew, selfishly, I knew who the best photographers were. So I'm kind of like, can you please help me? This is what I really want to do. And it's Saturday and Sunday, are you free? And, I really had to block out time. And then, because I was interviewing people, I had to make friends with people that were not in news, right? So law enforcement colleagues, people that our station interviewed for real stories, I had to, in many cases, go out and interview them. Like say we got a news release about some event happening. I would go out and interview them for that. A portion of that interview may air, at the station, later in that newscast, but generally that was for my reel. The content still helped the station ultimately, but it was all for me, pretty much.
Do you have some of the earliest ones still in your possession?
Probably. Those VHS tapes probably
one day
exist.
I'd love to see one of the early ones.
Yes, they definitely exist. There's something, I don't know about good, but they definitely exist for sure. I have to go dig them up out of a chest somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I still continued to do that, built the resume reel. Despite setbacks, there was a time where everything I had in the computer was deleted, and I had to start over from scratch. I'm like, oh my God, why is this happening? But it was what it was. But I learned a lesson. You always back up your stuff. You don't rely on one place, one system to keep your things. And I tell young people that to this day, like all of these life lessons that I had to experience, I share with others. Like if you're building, if you are editing on the system at your station, which, they have the top-notch system, which is great, you have your backup drive. You keep your content with you separately somewhere else so that should anything happen, there could be a power outage and you lose everything. You still have that and you don't have to start over. And I also tell young people to keep your resume up to date because you just never know when something may happen in this industry. So anyway, I started working on this reel. I started to send it out again, hire Brandi Cummings. This is your next reporter. And I got a call from WIS in Columbia, South Carolina, which is an hour from Augusta. And so I was super excited, and they wanted me to come in for an interview.
And that was to be a reporter?
That was to be a reporter.
Okay.
That was to be on air. And so they wanted me to come in for an interview. So I went to my news director, and now she knew that I was, working on this because I never believe in keeping these kinds of things a secret. It's like they knew I wanted to be a reporter. It
sounds like she was kind of helping too.
I'll get to that part of the story.
All right.
So, I get this opportunity, and so I go to her and I say, hey, I got this call from Columbia. They want to hire me. They want me to come down. And she's like, I know they don't want you. Like you don't have experience to be a reporter. And I'm like, wait, what? I was again devastated because I'm like, I would think that you support this dream.
Yeah.
Now, to put it into perspective, Augusta is market, I think maybe 116 or 117, again, out of 210. At the time, Columbia was like market 78. So you're talking like a big market jump for someone that's never been on air. Not to make excuses for the comment, but looking back, I feel like that's where it came from, as if to say, like, you've never been on television. Why does a station like that?
That's probably not how you took it at the
time.
That
That is not how I took it at all. And I mean, I was very hurt by that and very upset completely, just like, oh my God. But I also use it as motivation because I'm like, I'm going to prove to you that I can do this. Yes. Yeah. And at my 20-year mark, I tagged her in a post in LinkedIn and said, would you ever believe that I'd be doing this 20 years later? So there was some sweet joy in that. But anyway, so I go to Columbia, and the news director there, Tina Luque Blacklock, never forget her either. She actually said to me, I want you to go out on a story today.
When you went down for the
visit? When I
visit?
went for the interview.
For the interview.
And I'm like, okay. So they send me out with a photographer. The story, and again, things you'll never forget. The story at the time was about, and you'll probably remember this, at the time people were being sucked in the pool drains. So there had been a number of instances where people had been like either sitting in the drains and pools or things like that, and there were issues with the cover on the pool drain. So the story was about talking to like a pool expert or someone about ways that families could protect themselves during the summer. I didn't know Columbia. I didn't have any contacts there.
Or pools.
I knew nothing about any of this.
Right.
All I had was information, and this is what happens to reporters all the time. I had information about some instances that had happened. Again, I knew nothing even about the instances because I wasn't in that market. I was in a market an hour away. So I didn't even really know the news of that station, of that market. So I had to read up really quickly about what had happened, clearly understand what her expectation of me was. And so I go out with this photographer, and he's like, where you want to go? I'm like, I have no idea. So he's like, well, I know some pools. I'm like, okay.
Let's start there.
Let's just go to a pool. So we go to pools. They're empty, because it's during the day. Like they're closed. Kids are in.
Oh, you mean like community pools?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's working. Yeah. The kids are in school. Like, it's not the summer. I mean, it's like warm summer, but like it's not summertime.
Yeah. Right.
Kids are in school. Like, nobody's out talking about pool things. So I'm just like, oh my God, I'm not going to get this job because I'm never going to be able to talk to anyone. So I think we maybe found like a mom or someone at a park or something to just ask, her thoughts or opinion. So I called the news director and I said, well, I'm not able to really find an expert, but, maybe I can keep calling around. Maybe I can keep, so I kind of had all these ideas of the possibilities. Mm-hmm. So she's like, no, it's okay. Just come back. So I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, the lady's just going to just tell me no. She's going to tell me to go home.
I didn't get this.
So I get back. They put the story together. One of the anchors there voiced the story. And so, we talk after, and she's like, thanks for coming. I love your ideas. I'm glad that you had ideas. Okay, I'll be in touch. So I'm just like, oh God, my dream's never going to happen. I want to be a producer forever. Right? She calls me, offers me the job. So a few months later, I'm in Columbia, South Carolina, as a reporter. And so I was reporting mornings there. And at the time, a lot of people may know Craig Melvin, who's now on NBC on the Today Show. He was the main anchor there at the time. And I was working nights, I worked mornings. And eventually, before I left, I ended up hosting a community affairs show. So it just became an incredible learning experience for sure.
That started with you being ready when the surprise demand came of you, and you went with it instead of shutting down.
Absolutely. Yeah. And walking in confidently, but scared and not really confident, but I wasn't going to tell her that.
Never let them see you sweat.
That's right.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to tell her that, right? Because I wanted it so bad.
Right.
It's like, I'm going to do whatever I have to do. And I had never heard of that. Like, I'm not on your insurance. Like, anything could have happened in this car, Like, you have me riding with your photographer.
Yeah.
Like, but I think for her, it's also like, okay, you're a producer.
Let me see what she's got.
Let me see what you got. Let me see if you can do this.
And how open she is to doing something.
Yeah. And it just became, the start of an incredible career. So I left Columbia after 4 years. And actually, while I was there, a news director from Savannah watched me on the news in Columbia and called my news director. And at the time, the news director was Rashida Jones, who was the former vice president at MSNBC, called her and said, I want her to anchor my morning show. And so...
And these two stations aren't related, right?
No, this was a station in Savannah, and this was a station in Columbia, South Carolina. And so the news director called me up, and she's like, Savannah called, and I was like, what do you think? Like, she was like, it's a great opportunity because, again, I'm grinding, in Columbia. I'm working weekends. I'm working like Saturday. I was anchoring a Saturday morning show, and then the community affairs show aired on Sunday. But I'm young. I mean, you do all the things. And so she said, this is a Monday through Friday anchor position in the number one station in Savannah. So I'm like, okay. Here we are. So
would that be? I assume that's considered another step on your career.
It is.
Ladder,
it
right?
is. Yeah. Yes. Although market size, I went down. So Savannah is like market 98. So Columbia was market 70, 78, 79. But then market size, I went down, but up in position.
Gotcha.
So I became like a full-time, morning anchor at, again, the number one station in that market at WTOC. And so I went to Savannah, and at the time, and again, I'll be very, very transparent, as I always am with you, especially, or not just with you, but just in general. I always am transparent. But I was, I feel like I was a little arrogant there because it's like she wanted me.
Right.
She saw me. She wanted me. She called me. So I looking back, I didn't approach that opportunity with full humility like I probably should have. And that caused a lot of rift between me and the coworkers. And so I didn't get along with a lot of them. I didn't develop a lot of friendships there. And so my contract actually abruptly ended. So I was in a 3-year contract. And so my co-anchor and I didn't really get along. We didn't talk in the commercial breaks.
Which contracts are normal in this business,
Contracts
right?
are very normal,
So it's not like I have this position forever.
No, they're normally I don't even know now if they're doing 5-year contracts. They used to, but they're normally 2 to 3 years. Wow. And so either in between that contract or at the end of it, either party can say, we don't want to resign and we don't want to renew. But this came as a shock to me because I got no warning. It was not like, hey, 6 months out, we're not going to renew you, just giving you a heads up. It was like 2 weeks prior, my news director brought me in. She's like, hey, your contract's coming up soon. What are you thinking? I'm like, well, I was like, I really can't see myself doing this. And again, these are lessons I tell people now. I'm like, don't say that. Don't ever say that to a news
Unless
director.
you have another spot you're going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I was, in my mind, I'm being honest. And I'm like, I just
right.
can't see myself doing this. I'm very unhappy. I don't, I was very depressed there. Like I gained a lot of weight. I was just very unhappy. So unhappy that I got a whole nother degree. So I know it sounds strange, but no, I got a master's degree because I was sort of bored too.
Right.
I was like, in Savannah, so it was like 2.5 hours from home. I didn't really know anyone. I didn't immerse myself in that community really at all. Right. And so I was like, I'm getting out of television. I'm gonna just let me get this degree. I got my master's because I'm like, I'll just go teach. I'll just do that because I was like, I don't know if this is for me anymore. And so I had this conversation with the news director. Shared all of that with her. And 2 weeks later, she's like, "Hey, I wanna have a meeting with you." So I'm like, oh, "Okay, cool. You're gonna resign
You're
me?"
done.
Yeah, well, no, I'm like thinking, "Oh, she's gonna resign me. I'm good.
Right.
I can choose my own exit." So she calls me in with the general manager, and she's like, "We're going in a different direction, and you can either leave today or leave in 2 weeks." I mean, and it was literally that cut and dry. And I was like, "What?" Like,
right.
Are you kidding? Like, that's not the conversation we just had to. Right.
Yeah.
No, that's not my plan. So I was like, well, give me 2 weeks, and I'll do the 2 weeks. But yeah, I was devastated. So this time,
Right.
I'm like, I've got 2 weeks to
Find a new.
figure out life, you know, because you got bills. I'm living in a townhouse. I got the car note, the insurance. I'm like, how am I? What am I?
Right.
So I had an agent at the time. So I called my agent. I'm like, I don't know what to do. So he's like, first of all, you got to get it in writing, what they said. And so, go to her. I'm like, can I have it in writing? And so again, life lessons. So the writing was, yes, we're going to let you out of your contract. Yes, we're going to pay you through your contract, only if you agree not to sue. I signed it because I'm like, I'm done, fine. I need the money because my contract wasn't up for another 3 months. Right. And so I signed this looking back. I'm like, I probably could have had a loss, whatever,
right.
Just all the things in hindsight. But at the time, I'm in my 20s. I just need money. Like, I need to live and I need to figure out life right now because you have just upended everything that I thought I knew. And so I signed this paper. Go through the 2 weeks. I don't even remember if I did an on-air goodbye or maybe I did on social media or something. But I connect with NABJ at the time, and I connect with a guy, Chuck Carter. And
so that was kind of the first time with NABJ?
Yeah,
okay.
It was. Because when I was in college, I kind of was directed away from NABJ. Someone said to me, oh, you don't need NABJ, which, again, that wasn't the best advice because the best time to get into an organization like that is in college, is when you're a student. So you can learn almost at the feet of the masters, the people who are in positions to hire and to help and to guide and to give instruction. And had I been in that, connected with that organization, then when that happened in Savannah, I could have called a mentor and maybe gotten a job quickly. So there are all the other things that I think could have happened. So I didn't start in college. It wasn't until I was a professional, sort of several years into my career. And I think not participating early, I missed out on resources. I missed out on the potential for scholarships. And, NABJ has what they call a J school, where college students come in, and they produce a newscast during the conference that folks are watching during the hiring managers are watching. So there are all these opportunities that I missed out on, but I'm making up for it now. Just saying.
Yeah.
So I kind of connect, and I'm, getting information. And so, Chuck Carter says to me, he was like, I'm going to pay for you to go to NABJ. It's like, don't give me any money until you get your job, until you get your next job. And so, I'm crying. I'm like, oh my God, okay, I'm going to do it. And he's like, no, seriously. He's like, I want you to go, and I want you to find your next job. So I go to this conference, and it is an eye-opening experience. I mean, you see thousands upon thousands of people that look just like you, well-dressed, educated, lots of makeup, but it's an experience that if you've never had, that you're just like, wow, where am I?
Yeah.
Like,
I didn't know this many.
I didn't know this many people existed in the world.
Right.
More or less, my little area where I am. And again, you're like literally face to face with presidents of CNN, MSNBC. I mean, they're all there to recruit and to inform and to, it is literally the largest gathering of journalists anywhere. I mean, you have other organizations, NABJ or the Asian Journalists Association, they have conferences, but it is by far not as large as NABJ. Right. Our conferences garner 5,000 people, easy, no matter where we are. And sometimes we're going to Atlanta this year in August, it'll be more than 5,000 people in Atlanta. So I go to this conference, and so I've got my resume. You know, by this time, digital was a thing, so I've got my my real.
No more VHS
Yes,
tapes.
no more VHS tapes. So I got my thumb drive and my link again because my agent had put all this together for me. I'm just going around and meeting with people. They're giving me feedback. I met the news director. Her name is Lori Walden. She was the news director at KCRA at the time. And I would go back to her every year. She'd give me feedback. So I go to this one table. At the time, it was Lynn Media. So I see a guy leaned over, just kind of like, and so I joke, I'm like, hey, sir, no sleeping on the job. And he looked up, he laughed. He was like, oh, hi, you know. He's like, what are you looking for? I was like, oh, I'm looking for, a position. He's like, okay. He took my resume. I mean, it was just a very casual, short conversation. Didn't think much of it at all. So fast forward, at the time, I'm, of course, applying everywhere. So I had applied at a station. At the time, it was Time Warner Cable in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I had applied. I'd gotten an interview. I was literally waiting on them to give me the offer letter. I'm looking at apartments. I get a call from the guy that was leaned over. He's like, hi, this is Jim Gilchrist from Wavy in Virginia. I'm like, okay. He's like, are you still interested in Wavy? I'm like, sure. Go down for an interview. Again, #1 station in the Hampton Roads, Virginia area. Go down there. Within 3 weeks, I had the job. While I'm still waiting on Charlotte. So I have to call them like, sorry, I've got to. Because I called a mentor and said, my former news director in Columbia, and said, should I go with the cable station or the non-cable? And she's like, you want to go with the non-cable station. So I'm like, Wavy it is. I never missed a paycheck in that time. So between the time of when I left the Savannah station and they were still paying me, and when I started at Wavy, I never not got paid. So everything was covered. It's like, that's why I always tell people, like, I really believe that your existence and your path is predestined, and you're just kind of walking in it.
Right.
Because I never would have imagined that. Right. Don't make the bad choice. But I never would have imagined that. It's like you're told that your contract's ending and all the things, and then it works out where you're still getting paid through your contract while you're looking for a job, basically on a vacation for 3 months, because I wasn't working, but I was still getting my same salary, looking for jobs, able to fly out and go to these places and, not have to pay for that, and then get a job and never miss a paycheck in between any of that, and even get to a bigger market. Because, like Wavy, again, Savannah was 98, Wavy in Virginia was like in the 40s. So then, I'm jumping up 50 markets. I went there as a weekend anchor. So while on paper, it looked like there was a decline in position because I went from Monday through Friday morning anchor to weekend anchor. Again, you're doing a major market jump. And actually, the news director gave me the option. He's like, do you want to do traffic in the morning or do you want to anchor weekends? I'm like, well, I don't know directions that well, so let me go ahead with the anchoring thing. Let me do what I know over here. But it was also just a great experience. So I stayed in Virginia for 4 years. While I was there, met my husband, although met him in North Carolina. So we get married, and then, every year I'm still going back to the NABJ conference. I'm meeting the news director here in Sacramento. And so then we're like, you know what, there's an opportunity in Sacramento, so let's go to California.
But what made you leave there for Sacramento, which is obviously more than 2-hour drive home?
Yeah.
And now you're married, too.
Yes,
right,
married now with 2 children. Well, not 2 children at the time, but yes, we were married at the time. But I mean, if I'm being completely honest, there had been some opportunities, some movement opportunities there. So the 4 o'clock newscast had opened up. There had been a woman that was doing that show. She got promoted and went to another station. They launched a 7 p.m. show. So I'm the weekend person. So I'm thinking, hey, I'm the one that's going to get the next opportunity. Those opportunities didn't come. Okay. So I decided.
And would you have probably stayed?
I still would have. Yeah, I probably still would be there actually. Yeah. But that wasn't the plan apparently. But you were able to roll with it because you had cultivated those other opportunities. Absolutely.
Because you had mentioned you met the KCRA person years before that.
5 years before she hired me.
Probably 5 years in the making.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So let me ask you this, because I'm curious. I know you talk to young people quite a bit, and you're on TV every day. So, the young people that watch the news, my daughters don't watch TV at all. But what kind of what is your thoughts on the current state of journalism, and what would you tell a young person, maybe you as a senior in high school, that is now starting to go down this road? Because in my professional career, journalism has changed quite a bit. When I was the public information officer for the police department, the Sacramento Bee had multiple crime reporters. They were true investigative reporters, right? You couldn't just tell them something and they'd run with it. They would go look at the logs at the jail. They would go talk to multiple people out in the community just for one story. That doesn't exist now. The Bee is a shell of what used to be there. They've laid off several people. The TV news is very different than what it used to be. Many newspapers across the country have closed because there's so many other, I'm sure there's many reasons for it, but one being there's so many other ways people get their information. So, what is your take on where journalism is going, and what would you tell high school senior Brandi that is thinking about getting into this profession?
I recently spoke to a class at Sac State, a journalism class, and my message to them was, first of all, if you really want to do this, you've got to love it. You really do. This is not a profession.
That's good advice for any profession.
Well, yes, but especially one where you're not making a lot of money, where you're sacrificing a lot of your time. You are giving up holidays and weekends and nights and mornings. You have to love this. You really have to love what we do. You have to understand it, and you really have to respect it. If you don't, it's okay. Choose something else.
Right.
Don't get into this thinking you're going to make a lot of money out the gate, because you won't. It'll be many years
Probably
before you do.
Very few make the big dollars, right?
Absolutely. It's so few. And even those, right, we've heard and seen, even on the network level, they cut salaries there.
Yeah.
Gosh, we're looking at the separation of MSNBC, NBC, CNBC. We're seeing jobs be slashed. We're seeing whole departments be slashed. So it's happening everywhere. Fundamentally, though, it's because it's a business. Yes, right. we understand and recognize that it is journalism, but all of these journalists work for companies, and these companies have to pay their bills. And so it's a byproduct of everything else that we're seeing across the country in every other sector. So when gas prices are up, that affects the news business, right? It's not just us telling the stories, it also actually affects us. When people aren't able to buy cable subscriptions, then the cable companies start to go, again, I mentioned Time Warner Cable. They don't even exist anymore. That company doesn't. they were sold, so you've got that, right? And so then you have media companies that their source of income is commercials. Well, when businesses can't afford to purchase commercials, then those television stations can't afford to make their revenue. What happens? Eventually, everything is connected, and it all has an impact. And so now what you're also seeing are changes in laws that allow one company to purchase multiple television stations,
which has happened here in Sacramento.
Which has happened here in Sacramento. Of course, it happened with two of the local stations, and the California Attorney General has filed a lawsuit, so it's kind of on hold right now.
Right.
It remains to be seen if that will happen. But let's think about it. What does that mean? As one company,
less reporters.
You've got
assume,
two
right?
stations. You're going to consolidate resources. It's going to be less anchors, less reporters, less producers, less photographers. Less people in sales. It's going to mean all of that. It's also the question of identity. You have, again, one company that owns two stations. Is it going to be the Fox brand? Will it be the ABC brand? Do you lose the affiliations to? So there are a lot of questions about what that looks like.
Well, I've also seen, when I was the PIO, there was always a cameraman, a photographer, whatever their technical title is, and a reporter. Seems like in the last 10 plus years, I now a lot of times see the reporter is the cameraman. They bring their own camera, they set it up. There's no photographer with them. And so not only is that a job for a photographer that doesn't seem to be there anymore, but it also means another skill a reporter has to learn if they didn't already know. Because I look at those cameras I wouldn't know how to operate that thing.
Yeah.
So It seems like there's some of that too.
Absolutely. Again, it's all about the bottom line. So if I am the CEO of a company, I'm looking at, because I now have losses of revenue, I'm looking at how can I shrink my bottom line and what I'm paying out. So if I can train one person to do the job of two people and pay that person less, because I mean, let's be clear, they're called MMJs, multimedia journalists. They're not being paid the compensation of two people.
Right. They're still being getting their normal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, not even normal in some cases. A lot of times it's less because they're not considered the same as a photographer or as a reporter. They're considered an MMJ, right? So if I'm looking at bottom line cost, I'm looking at how can I maximize the resources? How can I still deliver the number of hours of television that we have, but still maximize resources? So yeah, you do have a lot more, again, of these MMJs that are out that are doing live shots on their own. They are carrying cameras in all kinds of weather on their own. But it is something we're seeing across the industry. It definitely didn't start in Sacramento.
Right.
It's not
It's
going
everywhere,
to end
so you
here.
can't
It's
escape
happening
it,
everywhere.
right?
No, it's happening in big markets in
But
Atlanta.
what does that mean for the young Brandi Cummings of the world who has now found her passion, right? I thought I wanted to be a ballerina and be in the sciences and all that, but now I've realized this, and I got my plan, my 4-year college and all that. What does what you just said about the current state and probably the future state of journalism, what does that mean for that young student?
It means that you have to step up your skills, and it means that you have to be knowledgeable about all of it. It also means that you have to make sure that you have a personal brand. Because the other thing that we recognize is that while, yes, what we put on television is important, but it's also the social media component. What are you putting out there? What are you doing when you aren't on TV? Because I think now people also just want to know about the people that they watch. One of the things we often talk about in our newsroom is like, what is the thing that has people watch television, right? Yes, it's the news for some, but for many people, it's about the relationship, real or perceived, that they have with the people that they're watching. Because otherwise, I could read the newspaper, or I could listen to the radio,
or watch a different station.
Exactly, or watch a different station.
So I'm connecting with Brandi.
Absolutely.
I really like the way her personality. I like all these things, which probably comes with positive, like people watching, but it also, I mean, there's some not well people out there that probably comes with some negative stuff that people are harassing you kind of thing too, because you're so public.
Absolutely, but that's why I mentioned the personal brand, because a lot of that is on social media. A lot of those connections are made on social media. A lot of people are, following you to see what you're doing on the weekends or what you're into. But yes, it does warrant both positive and negative attention for sure. I posted not too long ago about my hair. So I've been in Sacramento for 8 years, and so I've gone, super short. When I first got here, it grew out, it was long, then it was bone straight, then it got longer, and so now I'm doing the curly look, right? But everyone has an opinion. Everyone has an opinion. And it is what it is, right? It comes with the territory. I have learned to not take it personally. Right. Because I used to call my mentors, like, why would someone send me that email? Like, why would they be so mean? And they're like, it's not you. It's not about you. I need to be mad about something. I need to be mad about something, and I need to be mad at somebody.
So what I did not hear you say is that young person that has a passion for journalism should find a different profession. I didn't hear you say that.
No, we need good journalists. We need people who are passionate about this. We need people who are going to be dedicated to it and want to do it, of course, because we're not going to be here forever. Right. Nothing, as my mom always reminds me, nothing lasts forever, and you can't repeat the past. So we do need journalists. We need people who are going to dig and to research and not just take things on the surface. And to your point about, the past and the ability that these other, these larger organizations had, those abilities haven't gone away. Like the need to do that research.
There's probably more ways to get that research today than there was even then. It's a lot
easier, and that's one of the things I share with the students. I'm like, nowadays it is way easier for you guys to research than it was, because one of the questions they had for me was, how do you prepare for a high-level interview? And so I told them, I'm like, When I started, it was like literally going to newspapers, like going to the library.
You can research all sorts of cool stuff online now.
Yes. You can literally type in a person's name and find out everything about them, where they live, their address, their age, who their relatives are, their cell phone number, their email address. Like, you can find out so much now. Yeah. There's really no excuse. I mean, yes, as a journalist, you need to check and source your information.
A lot of false stuff too. Yeah.
Right. But it's still out there. The accessibility is much greater now than it has ever been. So for me, there's no excuse now to research. I mean, when you start talking about searching court documents and court records and all of that, you don't have to physically go. Not to every, some of them you still do, but not to every courthouse. Some of them you can access that online, right?
Yeah, you can find all sorts of stuff about who's been arrested, their charges, their court dates, everything, all online.
It's all
Couldn't
online.
do that when I first started.
That's what I'm saying. So we still do need people that are dedicated to doing that. And we just need journalists to stay focused on the job. And that's what I told those young people, like, don't get caught up in the noise. Don't get caught up in what everybody else is talking about. Focus on the job. And the job is to report the stories that impact your community and to make sure that you are giving as much information that you can while giving as many sides of it as you can, right? Because I had a news director that said they're not just two sides. There are many sides to stories and to situations. And so as a journalist, you need to figure out as many sides as you can. And then you let your viewers decide how or what they will do with the information that you present.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about NABJ, National Association of Broadcast Journalists.
Black journalists.
Black journalists.
You want to do that again?
Yeah. So a couple questions. First of all, like, what is the purpose of NABJ? But even before that, beginning in my career as a police officer, we had an organization called the Black Police Officers Association, the BPOA. And I regularly was, I would say harassed, we'll just say questioned by other people, especially in my profession. What is the need for a BPOA? Why are you separating yourself? There should be no Black Police Officers Association. We have a Police Officers Association. That should be good enough for you. So I'm curious if you've ever had some of those same sentiments in the journalism profession, because I would imagine that there is.
Yeah.
And so what is your answer to that? And what is the purpose of NABJ?
You asked me so many questions all at once. Okay, so I'll just jump in. So NABJ just last year celebrated 50 years in existence. And so the organization started as an advocacy organization, which we still are, an organization that seeks to advocate for Black journalists and representation. Because here's the reality. Even at KCRA, and I very much love my station. My bosses are phenomenal. Ariel, Derek, they're great. But I am the only Black female on television in 2026 at KCRA in Sacramento. There are other stations that have more African Americans, but for the number one station in this city, in this market number 20 out of 210, I am the only one. So organizations like NABJ stand to push that envelope to say, why aren't there more? Can we get more? Here's a pool of more. When those questions arise about, we need qualified candidates, NABJ says, here are some qualified candidates, right? Yeah. So that's a big part of what we do. It's really about the advocacy part of it. But then, as I mentioned, for college students, there's the training, because that membership allows you to get that free training, which we know now, again, going to Pointer is very expensive. Getting that training anywhere else, there's a cost for that. Mm-hmm. But if you're a member of NABJ and you go to the conference, you can be a part of, the J School and literally produce a newscast, get trained to do that, and it comes with your membership. So it's not as if you have to pay thousands of dollars to get this training. Again, we have one of the largest conventions just for journalists. We have one of the largest job fairs just for journalists, where you've got all of these corporations and companies there. You've got the CNNs, the NBC, the CBS, the Politico. You've got universities and colleges that are there as well.
They wouldn't be there if they didn't find a usefulness for them, too.
Absolutely. And they're regularly there every year. Hearst, my company, is there. You've got Tegna. You think of all of these major media companies, they are all there recruiting Black journalists and looking to diversify their newsrooms and, their platforms. But again, with membership, you can get to that job fair, and you are in the room your wildest dreams could come true on that floor. And so it really is about connection, right? It's about being able to connect journalists with, the people that they want to talk to. One of the other things too at the convention is that there are literal sessions. Like CNN has a producer workshop where they're literally training people how to produce better. Obviously, with the hope of them eventually working at CNN, but they're teaching you how to do that. ABC has they call it a Storytellers Summit, where you're going in and you're hearing from the Byron Pitts and the people who are on television at ABC. NBC has a training where you're literally learning writing. CNBC has they call it a business workshop, and I've taken part in all of these, by the way. But where they're teaching you how to write business news for CNBC, again, to increase the number of Black journalists who are working at CNBC. So they're all there. So all of that is at your fingertips as a member. And you ask why it's needed. Again, because when you look across the country, we are still the minority in a lot of newsrooms. Even when you look in places like LA, and I was at they had a soiree last year, and one of the things that the president there said is that while you see so many journalists, they have a chapter of over 300 people, the majority of them are in independent media. They're independent journalists. They're not at the mainstream stations. They're not the faces of the networks or the main stations. So there's still, 50 years later, this push to get more journalists, Black journalists, in newsrooms, but not just in newsrooms, in positions of management. We also saw just over the last couple of years, I mentioned Rashida Jones. She was my former news director. She left MSNBC. So you have someone in management that is gone. You've got several other high-ranking African-American managers that are no longer working for these networks, and they're not being replaced by African-Americans. So when you start thinking also about a pipeline of people that are Black, that are, looking to be in management, maybe have dreams of becoming the president or the CEO of a company, whether it's the network or not, you don't even see people that look like you that are there or that are in those positions. In 2026, we're still celebrating first. We're still celebrating the first Black whatever. And so that's where the organization's focus is the advocacy piece, really sustaining the organization so it can last for another 50 years, of course. And then really just making sure that journalists are trained, that they're getting the knowledge and information that they need to be better in their newsrooms.
So I think the equivalent of NABJ in law enforcement is NOBLE, which is the National Organization for Black Law Enforcement Executives. NOBLE is much more prevalent in the South and on the East Coast than here on the West Coast. San Francisco Bay Area has an amazing NOBLE chapter, but that's about it around here. But when you go to the East Coast, you see a lot more activity, a lot more involvement of NOBLE. It seems to me like that might also be the case with NABJ, because although I've heard of NABJ for numerous years, I can't recall any activity in Sacramento until you became president. And for sure, I don't ever recall a regional conference being held here in Sacramento. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just don't remember it because I'm not in that profession. But is that the case with NABJ? And what are you trying to do, and why did you become president? What are you trying to do in that position? Because I'm sure with 2 kids and a profession, like, it's not like you have an abundance of time that you're just looking to fill, like when you went and got your master's degree.
Right. Very true. And I appreciate that question. But to your point, yes, that's true. Again, the organization started 50 years ago in Washington, D.C. So the chapters on the East Coast are very strong. They're very large chapters. There are a lot more Black journalists on the East Coast. When I did some research just talking to the national organization about how many members of the national organization, not the local chapters because there are 50 affiliate chapters, but of the national organization, how many exist, it was less than 400. Less than 400
here, in this area.
NABJ members on the West Coast in Region 4. So less than 400.
Which is how?
13 states. Across
400.
13 states, less than 400, not even 400, less than 400 that are members of the national organization. Now, for instance, in our chapter here in Sacramento, we have 45 members, paid members in this chapter. all of them are not members of the national organization. Right. So there may be some members of local affiliate chapters. There's a chapter at UC Berkeley. There's no longer a chapter in Vegas. There's a chapter in Seattle. There's a chapter in Los Angeles, as I mentioned, in San Diego. So there may be members of the local chapters that aren't national members. But when the national organization is looking at membership count, they're looking at, okay, the West Coast has less than 400
Not
members.
very many.
Not very
compared
many.
to other regions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's part of the challenge. The other part is that we're just so spread out, right? Like, when they have a conference, again, in Atlanta in August, if I live in Birmingham, if I live in Savannah, if I live in Charlotte, I can drive there. Right. We are having, for the first time in 12 years, actually, our region is having a conference in 2 weeks. April the 24th and 25th.
So there has been a
Sacramento.
conference in Sacramento before?
Never in Sacramento, in the region, in Region 4.
Oh, okay.
So Region 4, the West Coast.
So there hasn't been a regional conference in 12 years?
In 12
really?
years,
Wow.
yes.
Okay.
And our chapter, under my leadership, is hosting it for the very first time. It's never happened in Sacramento, but it's happening for the very first time, April the 24th and 25th. But everybody that's coming, with the exception of the Bay Area, they've got to fly in. Right. So you talk about the cost
Vegas
of flights.
And all these
Yes, you talk about the hotel. I mean, so it's a lot to do. It's a huge undertaking for planning, of course, but it's also just huge for people to even come. We're hoping that's not a full deterrent, because I've been telling people since February, like, book your tickets, when they were a little cheaper. But, so it's... And so you asked the question, like you asked 5 questions, but the question about me being president, right? So I was elected in 2024 to be president. I didn't want to be president, actually. So this is also the third.
For somebody who doesn't want to be president, you sure are the president.
I know. I'm OCD that way. This is actually the third time there has been an NABJ chapter in Sacramento. This isn't the first chapter.
They closed and dormant for a while, and then
they weren't sustainable, which is one of my number one priorities, is to do enough fundraising, get enough people interested, talk about it enough that the chapter is sustainable, whether I'm here or not.
Right. Because at some point, you're not going to be the president.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The chapter in the Bay Area has been around since 1982, but they're also right now in flux. Like, they don't have a board, there are things happening, but I don't want that to happen for us. Right. I want us to continue with the momentum and to keep it going, keep it alive. And even if it's 10 people, it doesn't matter. Keep the chapter going, keep it alive, so that you can be here to support the Black journalists who are in Sacramento and who are in this region and in this area. So we kind of got together. When I got to Sacramento 8 years ago, I'm like, where's the NABJ chapter?
Right.
Where is, where? And at that time, there weren't as many Black journalists as there are now in this market.
Oh, that's good.
So I'm looking around. I'm like, where is everybody? Let's connect. It was chirp, chirp, nothing. So
but I also see the chapter is doing, I see online, different events that bring all the journalists together, too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely intentional what we're doing and how we're doing it. But I was pushing forward then. So then in 2023, the end of 2023, a group of us got together. Marcus D. Smith from Sacramento Bee was elected our first president. And so he led the chapter for the first year.
He's a young guy.
He is a young guy, yeah. From Sacramento, from this area. He's now working for the USA Today, by the way. I got to give him a big shout out. Okay. Yes, very happy for him. He recently got a position, and he told us in our meeting recently that he's living his dream job. So
good for him.
Very happy for him, for sure. And so there were a group of us, about 6 or 7 of us, that got together late 2023, and we said, we're going to do this. And so we started the chapter. Marcus was the first president, because I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't want to be the president. I'm like, I'm fine. So fast forward, I was elected in 2025, and I'm like, okay, you guys just got me doing it. And they're like, no, we're going to support you. You have a great board.
Heard that before.
Well, they have been phenomenal. The board is great. I can't say enough great things. Like, Courtney Dempsey is the vice president, and so Courtney's amazing, and I call her living legend, because she's been in this market for 30 years. So she
is local.
Yes, and she knows the history of those other organizations too, and what happened and why they happened. So she's also very much committed to trying to make sure that this chapter is sustainable.
I think she went to the #1 university in the United United States.
I don't know about
I think
that.
Sac State.
Yeah,
is
I'm not
okay.
sure. Okay. So there's that.
Just saying.
But no, so here we are in 2025, and so I'm looking like, okay, what, how are we going to stand out? What are we going to do to sustain this chapter? And so, I kind of got this crazy idea, like, what if we host a regional? So what's crazy is that my board is, and I say my board, but our board is, they're like, okay, let's do it.
I wonder if any of you realized how much work it was going to be.
Not at all.
Yeah, I would suspect
Not at
that.
all.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, we can do this. I'm like, you guys should. So I go to the Region 4 director, Aaron Day. He's in Los Angeles. And so I'm like, what do you think about us having a regional? He's like, well, because he was new at the time. He was new in his position. He's like, well, we haven't had one in a number of years. He was like, let's have a conversation. So we have this meeting with the region. And so none of the other chapter presidents were like, yeah, they were like, SAC wants it, okay, y'all can have it, right? So again, the LA chapter is a huge chapter. They could sustain it, The Bay Area chapter, everybody's like, yeah, go ahead, SAC, y'all got it. So we get voted in. So we're like, okay. So we're in 2026. So this was more than a year ago. So I instantly started planning. I started making calls. Like, I was calling every friend I'd ever made. Like, hey, I need your help. I need your support. I don't know what kind of support, but I'm going to need you. We're planning this conference. It's happening. We picked the dates, and no one has said no. And that has been just the most incredible part of this, is that literally everyone has jumped on board to support.
And it is next week, right?
Yes.
The 24th?
24th
through the...
Yeah.
And so I want to finish today with, maybe this is at every NABJ conference. I don't know. You tell me. But on Friday, so obviously if you're a journalist and you're you're a member of NABJ, and probably even if you're not, you know about this conference if you live in this region. And if you're interested, you know how to sign up and do all those things. But there's a public portion, and I don't know if this is a normal thing for an NABJ conference, because I've never been to an NABJ conference. But you are having a public town hall that I'll probably butcher the description of this, but it basically brings law enforcement and journalism together, and along with the public, on Friday at 5 o'clock. Talk a little bit
Actually,
about...
it's 4. I think it's 4 to 5:30. You're giving the wrong time. 4
my
4 to
apologies.
5:30.
But talk a little bit about that, especially on why you're doing this.
Sure. So that session is, again, like you said, this intersection of journalism and law enforcement and the public. It's happening at the new Aggie Square off of...
Which is basically Stockton and Broadway area.
Yes, yeah. Stockton and Broadway, yeah. The address is like 2nd Avenue, something like that. You'll see signs. Again, it's free. It's open to the public.
And we can put it on here, too.
Yeah, for people to attend. But for us, it's important, first and foremost, for people to have a voice, right? Like, what we do is give people a voice. We give people an opportunity to ask questions. We represent the public. When we go and we're asking the governor a question, when you were police chief and we're asking you a question, I'm not asking you because I want to know. I mean, sometimes, yeah, but it's not for me, it's for the public. Right. Because a lot of times journalists, they live in the community, but I may be a resident of Elk Grove, but I'm asking the Sacramento police chief a question about something that happened on behalf of the people of Sacramento. Right. So we are public servants in that way. And so I feel like it, and we feel like it's very important that people have that opportunity to ask those questions. So we're also delighted that you'll be on that panel, as will the retired Seattle police chief, Carmen Best. She'll be joining us, and Sacramento County Sheriff Jim Cooper. And that conversation really is going to be a lot about the intersection of the two, of journalism and of policing, and
which
how
often has
how
some
they intersect.
angst in between the two.
But
on both sides.
I think it's important too for people to understand the history, right, of how those relationships happen, how they develop. How they can be good or bad, and what makes them good or bad. And then it's important for the public to be able to ask questions too. I mean,
they'll be able to do that.
They will be able to do that. Not on a microphone yelling. We won't let anyone yell at you. Don't worry. But we'll ask.
I'm used to it.
we'll ask people to, to write out their questions. But the point is, a lot of times people just don't have the opportunity to ask the question. They don't have the opportunity to sit face to face across from you and ask you the question that they want to know about your field or why this, or can you help me understand this better? They can't do that. And so this is our way of saying we want to help you be able to do that. And ask questions of the journalists too. I mean, it'll be moderated by Cecil Hannibal. He's the weekend anchor at KCRA. We're not afraid to answer questions about our industry, about what we do or how we do. Now, our answers don't represent all of journalists everywhere, but we can definitely offer a perspective. And so that's what we really want to do and why we want to open it up to the community for sure.
So is this a normal happening at an NABJ conference? And if not, then how did you guys in this chapter get there?
Sometimes during the regional conferences, there are opportunities for the public to take part, not at the national. So at the national conference, you do have to be a paid member with a conference registration, to take part. And a lot of people may remember our organization invited President Trump to speak. So you had to have been a member and a paid registrant of the conference to have attended that. But no, this is different in that regard because the reason for the regional is to attract the journalists in the region. And so our way of doing that is also connecting with the people in the region that we're also serving. So that's why we decided to open up with the town hall. So registration,
how did you guys get,
required.
I'm just curious, since this isn't a normal thing, did the board, were you guys just round table thing and this would be a good opportunity? Or how did you get to something that isn't typical at the major conferences?
That's just what we do. No, so when we were planning, I actually came up with 17 different sessions for the conference. Again, very, very, very much OCD. And the Region 4 director was like,
Was this one of those 17?
It was. It was one of the sessions. And so he's like, we've got to cut all those down. I was like, okay. So we had to dramatically cut kind of this plan I had in my mind of how many sessions we were going to have and really focus on the sessions that were most impactful and most important. But this was one of the sessions. And those sessions, though, were only an hour 15 that we were planning on having. And so, when we started looking at, okay, which session are we actually going to have? Which ones do we have to cut? Which ones can we use and have in a different way? That's how the conversation came up about how do we bring the community in, what topic would be most relevant to the community, and what would draw people out? What would be interesting for people to talk about? I mean, talking about AI in a newsroom is probably not going to draw out the public, but when you start talking about
law enforcement will.
Law enforcement hopefully will, but not just law enforcement. It's the intersection of it all, right? Because it's not just a conversation about law enforcement and what law enforcement does or doesn't do. Because again, Carmen Best will be there too, and she's going to talk about her experience in Seattle and just how she worked through things. And she was the first, I want to say the first Black female police chief there in Seattle. So her experience is different than your experience. So, we want to cover all of that. But again, really give people an opportunity to ask questions and really hear from people who have been on the front lines of history, really.
And I think it's really good that you added the sheriff in there, too, because the dynamics, especially when it comes to public comments, those sort of things are very different in a police department than they are in an elected sheriff's department. So I think that is a great add that you had on that. So is part of the goal is that the journalists that are attending the conference go to that too, to get something from the whole conversation too, because maybe they don't work with law enforcement as a normal part of their job.
Absolutely. Okay. So everyone that's registered for the conference, we automatically obviously expect them to come and want them to be at the town hall. And again, it's an opportunity to have dialogue, really, because there may be questions that people have about journalism, about why journalists do what they do. And so if you're in a room of journalists and you want to ask that question, that's the best time and way to ask that question. If you want to, as a journalist, ask a question about why law enforcement does what they do, that's the time to ask that in a very informal way, where your job's not a part of that, right?
Right.
And we're talking about journalists from 13 different states, so their experiences are all different. But you guys are the experts, so we want to hear from you. We want to know your opinion and your thought. And a lot of the questions you asked me about, the state of journalism and where things are headed. I mean, I think those questions will also come up, like the state of law enforcement. Right now, Sheriff Cooper is talking about budget cuts. We're seeing that across the board in a lot of areas. What is that going to mean for law enforcement? Yes, it means fewer deputies, sure, but what other things could potentially be cut? And how is that going to impact the public? And, we're talking about the what if, but let's talk about what if it really does happen. I mean, I know we're talking about the possibility, but if it does happen, what does that mean? What can the public do, if anything, to change it, to make a difference? So those are the kinds of conversations that we're hoping to have.
Yeah, and those are what a lot of people, you hear a lot of, whether it's politicians or on the news, local, national, but how does it impact me and my community and on my street and my neighborhood? What am I going to see any different? Because if not, then maybe I don't care as much.
Right.
But it might be something I truly, truly care about, safety of my family or whatever. So in closing, if somebody listens to this and wants to attend the town hall, how do they do it?
So there's a link that I know you guys will share for people to register. Again, it's free. We just want folks to register so we kind of have a head count, know who's coming. Again, it's at Aggie Square, and if you haven't been in that building yet, it is absolutely phenomenal. It's
I have not been in that building.
Oh,
so this
you
will be,
are in
I don't
for
think
a,
I have.
you are in for a treat. It's modern, very state of the art, and the room we're in, it's called the Assembly Hall, and so it literally has. We kind of joke and say it has seating for everyone. So there are the comfy chairs that swivel. There are the high back chairs. There are the stools. So that's one of the reasons why Aggie Square was selected as our kind of host location too, in addition to the fact that UC Davis and Chancellor Gary May were just phenomenal and very supportive. But the facility itself really does lend itself to what we're looking for. So you have this, this assembly space, and then you have classrooms that are 2 feet, from where we are. So all of it's contained, all of it's right there. So it's literally as simple as clicking to register and showing up on Friday afternoon.
And then we'll see you, all of them, and you next Friday.
Yeah.
Not this Friday.
That's right. On the 24th.
The 24th. Yes.
Yeah. So because after the town hall, from there, then again, registration not required for that. But then we're going to have our opening reception. So that'll actually be held at the Hilton Sacramento Arden, who they have been phenomenal as well in supporting us. And so at that reception, our national president of NABJ will be there to give remarks. Kevin Frazier is coming, Entertainment Tonight. He is coming to give our keynote address. I'll be speaking. Our Region 4 Director, Sacramento Mayor Kevin McCarty is also confirmed to be there, as is Mike Testa. Visit Sacramento has also been incredibly supportive. So they'll all be there for the official kind of kickoff opening reception at the hotel. Registration is required for that. There'll be
so
food
you can
and
go
all
to
the
town
things.
hall, just don't come to that.
No. We want you to come to that, but
if
you got to
register.
Not registered.
Yes.
Yeah, but we do want people to register. And the thing is, too, I mean, it is a conference for journalists, but it's not just journalists. A lot of people have asked, if I'm a independent journalist, or I'm a media creator, is it for me? Absolutely, because the thing is, you just never know where a connection will lead.
Right.
So you come to something like this. You may not be a traditional journalist, right? You may not be a reporter at a TV station, but let's say you're a creator. Well, you come to this and you meet other creatives, or you meet people that you may want to interview, or you meet people who may be able to help you set up a podcast. So there are connections to be made with other people that will also be there. So I say, if you are in media, period, and you also don't have to be Black.
I was just going to confirm that. Yes.
Let me just throw that out there, right? It is the National Association of Black Journalists.
But it's open
That's our
to
name.
everyone.
It is absolutely open. We want all people to come. Anyone in media is welcome, because again, we learn from each other.
Right.
We're not, we don't operate in this silo where it's just us. We advocate for Black journalists. We want more representation for Black and minority journalists, period. And yes, that's the name of our organization. Yeah. But when you start talking about training sessions, we'll have. So again, we'll have this, the opening reception on Friday night, and then Saturday is our bigger day. So we start with a breakfast on Saturday morning. that'll be sponsored by the McClatchy Foundation. Their focus is talking about sustaining media in underrepresented communities like the Central Valley. So you'll have representatives from the Central Valley talking about how we need to increase media, period, not just Black, but media,
especially.
period. Yeah, in places like the Central Valley again. And we know, like, for instance, the Sacramento Observer just opened a newsroom, in Stockton. So we're going to talk a lot about why that's so important and how we get back to that place of, hey, we still need to cover those stories that are happening in these smaller cities. And then we'll, of course, have sessions, on Saturday. We've got a celebrity panel on Saturday afternoon. There's a luncheon.
Oprah's going to be on that panel?
Not Oprah. I tried to get Oprah. You know me.
It seems to me like it would be an amazing opportunity. Sacramento has a ton of college campuses, from, I think, the largest, if not one of the largest, community college districts in the country, Sac State, UC Davis, William Jessup, and a ton of other universities, most of which that have some sort of journalism or related degrees or programs. Seems like, especially for those students that would only need to drive, in other words, not have to fly or anything, seems like an amazing opportunity for them.
We have been tapping in. We have been reaching out to the college students. Our chapter also is giving away scholarships. So we had a scholarship competition that we did $10,000 in scholarships. Again, we're going to have managers there, folks who are literally the people hiring in newsrooms, in newspapers. Awesome. They will be there. So there's a session where they're talking about how to kind of stand out. But then we added a session where in 15-minute increments, you can sit face-to-face with a news director. Like, you got 15 minutes. What are you going to talk about? Great. They can critique your resume. They can, so all of that is available to them. And so we want students to take advantage of it. I mean, yes, it's for those of us who want connections, but absolutely it's for the students. We want them there.
Outstanding. Well, I can't thank you enough for a couple things. One, sharing your time and talking about this great opportunity that's coming to our town, and not just for journalists. It's good for the hotels and the industry of bringing people from all over the place. You mentioned Mike Testa. I'm sure he's thrilled that something like this is going on in town, but also for your commitment to journalism. I think journalism is a critical part of our country's not only history, but how we get information, who do we trust, those sort of things. So thank you for your commitment to that and your time today. And in addition to your commitment to be leading an organization that is putting on an opportunity like that.
Well, thank you for having me. I always appreciate your support, and I feel like over these 8 years, you've definitely been one of the people who I'm like, Chief Hahn, I need to find XYZ. Can you help me? And you're like, okay, yes, let me call around. And so I always appreciate that, because especially as a journalist that's new to a place, you're always trying to find people that you can trust and people who you can call to say, I need someone to interview for this, or I need someone who can connect me with this. And so, I always appreciate being able first of all, that you answer the phone when I call, but that, you've always been that person. So I definitely appreciate that.
Well, again, thank you. I think good journalism, I emphasize good, is critical to our well-being, our country, maintaining the things that we value in this country. So thank you again for your time.